We were married in 1952. We lived on Sealy in Chicago.
When I was 16 years old, looking for many things to help me to grow.
The church actually saved my life.
Esta es mi iglesia porque mi familia ha sido parte de esta iglesia por más de 36 años.
I love the church. I appreciate the church because as for me, I'm from Africa. I don't have a family here, but this church is my family.
This is my church and I'm a Mormon.
Across Chicagoland, statements of testimony and truth ring out in front of stake centers, from a Southside chapel to the temple north of the city, and from many places in between. 40,000 strong, Mormons here remember our heritage in this great city and renew our commitment to living and sharing the gospel with our neighbors in Chicago. In February of 1846, almost all Mormons left Illinois, forced from their Nauvoo homes and across the frozen Mississippi by mobs that had murdered their leaders and threatened their families. For the next 50 years, as Chicago grew, almost the only church members documented in the city were missionaries, by 1878 assigned to the Northern States Mission, stretching over 22 states and into Canada. Officially, the church re-entered the Chicago history books by sending the Mormon Tabernacle Choir to the Columbian Exposition, the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. Missionaries in the area found some success among Scandinavian and German immigrants. The Northern States Mission was headquartered in Chicago beginning in 1896, and within 20 years, the church had a building in Logan Square used for both mission home and meeting house. By 1929, we were ready to build. At 6111 South Kenwood, and just blocks from the University of Chicago, the church constructed the University Branch Chapel, its beautiful Gothic style echoing the nearby university's architecture. The church's official exhibit in the 1933 Century of Progress World's Fair in Chicago was well attended, and President Heber J. Grant brought the Tabernacle Choir back again. Sculptor Avard Fairbanks designed the 30-foot-long plaster display entitled Eternal Progress.
Eventually, enough members were established here. The church could be petitioned to provide for the creation of a stake.
On November 29, 1936, more than 700 people crowded into the University Branch Chapel on the south side. They were there to witness an historic event, the creation of the original Chicago stake, only the second stake created east of the Mississippi and the first in Illinois since Nauvoo. President Heber J. Grant presided as stake number 118 was officially organized out of the Northern States Mission. William Matheson was called as the first stake president. The Chicago stake stretched north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and south into Indiana. For the next 27 years, stake leaders would travel many prairie miles to keep track of their flock as the stake grew to encompass 11 wards. The North Shore Ward first rented space at the Edgewater Beach Hotel on Chicago's north side. Then in 1951 purchased a lovely mansion on Ridge Avenue in Evanston. The interior was redone to make space for the congregation, and every inch of the elegant building was used. Classes were held on the staircase when needed.
A fun building because we'd tell people that we met in church in a ballroom, and so that was fun. If we had a party, we would have it in the ballroom, and so on. The only problem with it is that in the ballroom, the windows came clear down to the floor. And when it was a warm day, they would open the windows from the bottom. And we had little kids. We had 4 little boys. And I just worried about them falling out of the windows.
You didn't get to see many mansions in those days.
The Logan Square Ward continued to meet on North Sawyer in Chicago. The University Ward building on Kenwood was used continuously until 1960. 24 years after President Grant's visit, Elder Jack Ward of the 70 would be the last child baptized in that building on his birthday in 1960.
I feel that Chicago is a special place because of the special people that came here. But I also feel very strongly, not only has the church been established in Chicago, but also the gospel has been established here.
Well, when we first had children, I thought I'll never be able to raise my children this far away from Utah and the center of the church. I just was really scared about it. But I think the programs that the church offers are outstanding. Our children embrace the church with all their might.
An early welfare project was producing and packaging shaving cream and toothpaste in the basement of the Logan Square building. As part of its welfare program, the stake ran a dairy farm in Wisconsin. Janet Edmonds Herod, daughter of stake president John Edmonds, remembers,
I often went with my father. I even had a calf named after me. I also helped herd in the dairy Holstein cows for milking and gathered eggs, which were sold for the welfare program.
Subsequent stake presidents Paul Jesperson and Darrell Johnson shuttled from building projects to meetings to the welfare farm during their years of service as the stake grew. In the early 1950s, the Chicago Stake organized a choir that performed widely and also won a city-wide choral competition. The choir put on a concert at Orchestra Hall under the direction of Sylvan Ward, Elder Ward's father. This was one more project the members engaged in to raise funds for the construction of a true stake center for the rapidly growing membership. President John K. Edmonds, who served as counselor to the first stake president beginning in 1936, and then as stake president himself from 1945 until 1963, was instrumental in making this happen. Ground was broken for the Stake Center in Wilmette in 1958. Construction completed, the building was occupied in 1960, at which point the Kenwood building was sold.
I can remember that this building meant a lot to my parents. So it means a lot to me. And this building is part of establishing the church. And it helped establish the gospel in the lives of the members. And that's what really matters.
The Stake Center's original plans called for brick to be used, but one contractor told President Edmonds that he had plenty of work for his bricklayers, but no projects for his stonemasons. He offered to use stone instead of brick on the building at virtually no additional cost to the church. Brick was the standard exterior throughout the church and had already been approved. But President Edmonds persisted, and eventually Lannon stone, quarried in Wisconsin, was approved by the church building department.
We were happy to learn one day from President John K. Edmonds that we were going to have a church chapel, a regular chapel of our own. And while it took about 4 years to complete this, from groundbreaking to the time we were able to use it, we were all very anxious, and we came over week after week to see what the progress was of this building.
The building was dedicated in 1962 when construction bills had been paid in full and President David O. McKay was available. President Edmonds recalls that day fondly. When President McKay came out, I took him in the car before the dedication and gave him a ride round the block and let him look at the building from all angles. Just before we went into the building, he smiled and said to me, "I'm glad you held out for stone." He thought it was a gorgeous building. The words for the dedicatory song, "Behold This House," were written by President Edmonds. The music was by Sylvan Ward.
Behold this house, O God above, a symbol of thy children's love, a house of peace, a house of prayer, adorned with beauty rich and rare, conceived in faith and charity, a place where all may worship thee. Each precious part we built with care, knowing thou seest everywhere. And now, as in humility we consecrate this house to thee. O let thy Spirit make it known, thou dost receive it as thine own. And as we meet in future days, to worship here and offer praise, may all the humble and sincere constantly feel thy presence near.
That was very important to have a stake center. It gave us a central point to meet and to come together as saints.
My recollection of David O. McKay was that he was not only a prophet, seer, and revelator, but he was a motivator as well. He gave you the feeling that we could build this stake into anything we wanted, that we could accomplish whatever was in our minds and in our hearts. And he testified to that and left that testimony to dwell with us so that we could actually do that. And we did accomplish marvelous things through the members and leadership of the stake at this time.
Within a year of the dedication of the Chicago Stake Center in Wilmette, the stake was divided into 3 stakes: the Milwaukee Stake, the Chicago South Stake, and the remaining Chicago Stake. Lyle Cahoon was called as president of the Chicago South Stake, and one of his counselors was a young law professor at the University of Chicago, Dallin Oaks. Within the city of Chicago, there would be more growth and change. The old Logan Square building was torn down, and a new building constructed next door. The Foster Building on the north side of Chicago was built and dedicated. After the Kenwood Building sold, the Hyde Park ward moved twice before their new chapel was dedicated in 1992. Not only the buildings changed during this period of growth, the people inside the buildings changed too. Spanish-language Sunday school classes were held in the Logan Square ward. As participation swelled in the early 1970s, a Spanish-language branch was organized. In the late 1970s, missionary work on the south side of Chicago among African Americans flourished. Membership in the Hyde Park ward grew by 300% between 1979 and 1993.
I joined the church at April 14, 1979, 32 years. So when I first joined the church, it was a branch, and I was here to witness the growth. At that time when I joined, it was like 5 families. Now here we in a war, and it's just so many beautiful families here in this building.
By 1985, the Wilmette, Illinois Stake, renamed in 1974, included 2 full wards and 1 branch of Spanish-speaking saints.
Well, I feel like a pioneer in the Spanish word is because when I came here, we were a branch, and I could see the growing of the membership in our branch.
I came here to Chicago when I was single, 1991, and met my wife 3 years later. We got married in the Chicago Temple. So now we have 4 wonderful, beautiful children, and I see them growing in the church, learning about the Gospels on the early years. The songs on the primary is so wonderful for me to see them enjoying the church, something that I didn't have the opportunity when I was little, and to see them that they are building their own testimony about that, the gospel.
Church membership in the original Chicago Stake geography of 1936 grew by the 1980s to encompass 8 stakes, and by 2012 to 11.
There has to be sufficient development for there to be stakes. Temples are not, cannot be placed where there are not stakes.
In 1981, President Spencer W. Kimball announced that a temple would be built in Chicago.
I recall vividly the groundbreaking, but probably the one that stands out just because it was rather unique was the matter of the cornerstone laying, and see the anticipation on the part of people, the excitement that the temple was now going to be able to be used.
More than 100,000 people toured the temple during the open house in summer 1985. The Sisters of the Relief Society thoroughly cleaned the temple twice, between construction and the open house, and then again after the open house, before this house of the Lord would be dedicated. Wiped clean by human hands, the temple would be unspotted by the world when the Chicagoland saints collectively bowed their heads in reverence and offered it up with a prayer of thanksgiving.
When we received the announcement that the temple was going to be built in Chicago, and then we were very excited. I have stories of sisters that they participate in the cleaning all the tiles of the temple, the marble tiles in the temple.
On August 9th, 1985, our temple, the 35th operating temple in the church, was dedicated. Gordon B. Hinckley presided over both the groundbreaking and dedication. Joseph Hicken was stake president at the time of the dedication.
When we had the cornerstone laying and the dedication of this temple, there were 52 stakes in the temple district. And in that same district, there are now 9 temples.
As we remember the sacrifices of yesterday, we renew the blessings that move us forward to tomorrow.
And for me, that the temple is a blessing for all of us.
The temple brings such a peace, joy and happiness in my life.
It's a family it's a church that loves other people, other nations, other tribes, that when you come in, you are welcome.
When you know what principles to stand with and stand for, life can come around in a way that you don't expect. And I'm grateful for the gospel for that. It has many, many times just shown me how God is miraculous.
This quote by President Hinckley, I think fits looking back at the past and particularly looking at the situation of the temple and the fact that creating a stake allows for there to be a temple, which allows for the change in people's lives. President Hinckley made this statement. He said, "It is good to look to the past to gain appreciation for the present and perspective for the future. It is good to look upon the virtues of those who have gone before to gain strength for whatever lies ahead. It is good to reflect upon the work of those who labored so hard and gained so little in this world, but out of whose dreams and early pains, so well nurtured, has come a great harvest of which we are the beneficiaries."